came over from Czech Republic, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's a brilliant, good friend of mine for several years, and he's a great analyst. You're going to hear about a bit of his journey and how he got to where he is. So give him a welcome.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. All right, so actually, just to get a gauge of people, how many people have worked in a SOC before? Okay, good. We got some good hands. How many people are looking to work in a SOC? Okay, we got a couple. We got a couple of hands. Cool. This is for you. So it's less about me per se, but more of what an analyst will do on a day-to-day basis. We're looking at their circle, the circle of life. Part of it is from my experience. So let's take an adventure together. I am your DM, Bandito. That'd be Dungeon Master for those, but Game Master for others. So just a quick overview. We're going to go how the SOC is envisioned, going through overview and various expectations. And we will have some couple of scenarios and skill way for people to upskill. Oh, there we go. So let's start off with the beginning of adventure. The first step is always the scariest. So we're all going to take this journey together in the SOC life. So just a bit about me. You can see most of the stuff in the slides, but I'll cover some things that's not covered. So before I was in the military, but I did not do IT. That was not the start of my career. I did food service, so fitness center, lodging. So it's customer service related jobs that I did. And then I went into more of an operational support for various aircraft. So that's my background. And you can see a couple of things like I'm couple communities, the Blue Team Village. If you all went to DEF CON, the Blue Team Village had their workshops, which counted their CTFs. Those are ones that I usually help out with. So let's go into the deal. The SOC is envisioned in so many ways. You always see this in the movies where you have your multiple screens and dashboard up with seeing the world. And then you have your office space, which is kind of more of the reality. But over the years, we have gone into more of a virtualized SOC where it's work from home, and you're working from your computer. So let's start with what a SOC is. It's the hub. It is the central nexus where all the analysts are working to monitor the network. They use onto the telemetry every logs from every resource within the company to get a view of what's going on the network, because that is how we see things. We need to be able to touch that data to be able to act on it. And sometimes the SOC acts as coordinators. So when it comes to the incident response, there will be coordination side with the IT support, the vulnerability management, and other organizations. And we have the people. We have this nice little people, process, and technologies, which brings the who, the means, and the how. And that's our road to success. We are as a SOC, you are the technical eyes and ears of the policy. Where there's a policy, you are looking through those telemetry to find the violation of policies that can lead to security incidents. So the model of this, when you hear tier 1, tier 2, L1, L2, L3, this mirrors the process for how the service desk operates, because it's part of that IT service management aspect. So that's why you hear that. And so we're going to tier 0, which is generally automated. Those are the ones where there's going to be inputs that's going to go into the ticket process. And those inputs are generally automated. And tier 1 is going to be where that linking, scoring, ranking goes, because the tier 1s are the ones that are looking at the dashboard and will manually find something. Now, I've worked in a couple of places where there's a reason why these intersect, because the tier 0 and tier 1 were all automated. I worked in a couple of organizations that automated that process. So they needed L2s. So those will be the scoping and enriching and just validating what goes on in the network. And then once they validate it, that can raise to an incident that requires the containing and responding. Now, there's an intersection between 2 and 3, because sometimes the tier 2 will have some limited capabilities to do the isolation, generally emails, from what I've experienced. And this is very important. Everything you do, you need a receipt. Everything you do is with a ticket. The ticket is your receipt. The ticket says you did its job. If you lose it, it never happened. So always carry a ticket. And these are heroes. These are the various positions within a SOC. You have your security analyst, incident responder, forensics examiners, and then you have the more atypical components such as threat analysts and malware analysts. Now, technically, these are part of the supporting role with a SOC, but they are generally different departments, which is going to be your penetration testing and red team, or they could combine it into one function. There's a lot of technologies and a lot of expectations that's required for an analyst. If you look at the confused analyst and look at all of these various domains, this goes back to sometimes you're going to be the jack or Jill of all trades. You're going to have to know how to understand those domains and how to respond to it. You may have heard from our keynote speaker that there was she had the role of the jack or Jill of all trades, and that's the role that a SOC analyst will always have. You can specialize eventually, but you're going to be expected to be that all trades. And at that role, you're the eyes and ears of everything that goes in the organization. You have the ability to see what goes on and if it's violated or if it leads to an incident. Cyber defense is that aspect. And sometimes you need to improve the capabilities. There's recommendations. You can recommend how, if there's a gap, you can make recommendations to improve the security controls. You can make recommendations to improve the process based off those observations and that telemetry to prove it. And this is non-escapable for those that do not want to interact with people to be in the computers. You're going to be interacting with a lot of people. You're going to be talking to the users sometimes. You're going to be talking to the stakeholders sometimes. So there's that coordination function. There's that customer service function that is really expected of people. And just as I mentioned on the right side, there's those emerging technologies. The latest one is artificial intelligence. Another one before then was cloud. And going deeper, far back, which exists old age time, but is coming back to bite some organizations, operational technology, because it's old technology that still required to operate because of the impact it has physically. And also research, and research capabilities is very important. Be able to research on emerging threats, research on the vulnerabilities. Those are all important skills to have as a SOC analyst. So we go over typical tools. We have our SIEM, our EDR, XDR, gateway, SOAR. The SOAR is generally what helps automate some of the processes. That could sometimes be your ticketing system, which generally is going to be because this is show all the steps that you do. Sometimes it's going to be part of your playbook, so you can document everything you've done in there. And then there's some external analysis tools that are very important to your library of capabilities. Our tool, however, this is going to be our fantasy tool called the Eyes of Volcana. This is our SIEM. This handles everything for our organization that we're all part of. So what does a day by day look like? A typical day? Email investigations, they're phishing. There's phishing every day. There's bad guys sending emails every day. Sometimes mostly just scam, sometimes spam, sometimes worse. Policy violations, it happens. No matter how good your organization is, there's still people that try to do either do things to get by on their job, or sometimes they do deliberate violations. Network monitoring, that's part of the role. Part of the role, looking for anything bad happening. And sometimes data loss prevention support is becoming more important to support data. That's one of the domains, because with GDPR and other aspects, the SOC's job is to protect that data. That's for every other company, for every company. And atypical cases has been website credential theft. That's going to be more likely now with stealers, which will be talked about as our keynote speaker. Two of our keynote speakers actually have touched up on. Third-party investigations, because there's a lot of trusted connectivity. There's trusted relations, where sometimes those third parties are responsible for phishing because their accounts got compromised. And stolen devices, because sometimes the SOC needs to know what got stolen, because that may be going up to the leadership. So the evolving climate, over the years, we have seen security companies that are primarily security gone from offering various services and capabilities to more of the software as a service in development, which you can see on the bottom right of the various type of solutions that exist. And many of those companies have gone to that. Then it's a growing need to understand your organization's environment. And that includes the policies. Not only just the policies, but the entire infrastructure. What's important. And lately, with the change of that model going towards the MDR side, organizations are now investing in their internal SOC to have that capability. People that work in their network to understand it. So this is borrowed from the Pyramid of Pain. However, this is more of an observation frequency triangle. As at the bottom are the most frequently observed. So legacy malware, such as keyloggers from 2009, 2011, those type of legacy malware have you often see in the systems. Phishing and vishing. Some rising ones are quishing and stealers. But you're not, and the reason why the other two on top is you will rarely observe it. But that doesn't mean you need to be complacent. It's just this is the frequency of what you see day to day. And here's the typical common initial compromise. Point of compromise. You typically have phishing. Advertisements have been a growing thing. And the one thing that's not talked about is that people will have USBs for their job that's needed. You can try to block it all, but people will still need to do that for part of their job. Unfortunately, there are some violations that can happen, and they will introduce malware into the network. And also service exploits. So we have our domains: email, web app, computer, and network. So we're going to go into one of our examples. You are tier 2 analyst working for a financial organization. There's important considerations to how we do this job. Our SIM detected a malicious phishing that happened on the network. Let's look at our tool. Well, first, no. So this is important. We need to validate what happened, because sometimes it could be a false positive, because there could be some legitimate links. That has happened. So surface level and scale, those are the two aspects for the information gathering. And then you can collect the emails either with the automated capability, get it from the user, or the reporting tool. So we look at our eyes of Wakana. We have this little message that we collected. So for deeper analysis, we're going to validate this. We have some tools that we can do. We have some options over Toolcraft. Euroscan or Interactive Sandbox. We're going to do the Interactive Sandbox. Ding! As the arrow points. So in the sandbox, you have the initial page from the link. Then it redirects over to a part that appears to be like the end of the first phase, where then it's going to request, when you click on that, it's going to request to fill out an email to get a document. What's interesting about this is that there's an interactive challenger where they use Cloudflare to verify that it's a human operating it rather than a sandbox. And then once it's validated, threat confirmed. Roll for initiative. We have a bad guy. So in this response, we want to do a collection. We want to review what's going on, impacted recipients. Then we need to prioritize on the ones that actually click the link, because you may have gotten the alert from one of the users, but there could have been more that clicked on it. And and to do that, you can use the network logs, the proxy logs, to see if they went to the final payload website. Then it's going to be treated as if it was compromised. And reset those credentials and purging the emails. As you see in the bottom, there was indications that the person tried to log in, but MFA prevented the access. So we have some post-incident analysis that you can do. So some email considerations and some considerations when you're examining emails. Having a text editor, it can be helpful. And doing it in a sandbox and reviewing offline is also very helpful, because sometimes those emails can have trackers. So if you're clicking on it, it can go still reach out to the enemy, let them know that someone accessed the email and validated their target, even though it may not be your intended target. So let's do some extra credit. So we have some indicators of compromise. In this case, there were multiple links. They were attached to each other in a chain for redirection. But there's some more we can gather. At the end of that first phase, there was a second one. And the second one had something very interesting, which we can go to our next one, next tool of trade, Euroscan. Particularly the search function. Always use the search function to see if someone else did it. Because there's 9 times out of 10, there will be someone else who did that research. In this case, we have the malicious domain, malicious URL, and went to the DOM. In the document object model, scrolling down, here is a script that will require some decoding. So, extra credit on the puzzle solving. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to have a new tool. We're choosing CyberChef for this. We have the entry. We have that data. We're going to decode it, remove the null bytes, and turn it from hex. And we gathered this malicious domain as that hidden one. That was the one that did the challenge. So there's some reflection on this. over the years, there's been an increased use of redirectors from the bad guys. And now they're starting to see more of the uses of Cloudflare's challenge function to make sure that they have a human. Because sometimes there are some sites that have malicious payloads, and trying to access it directly will be denied because the challenge was not fulfilled in order to prevent analysts from acquiring that data. So we do a little breather. How y'all feeling? How y'all feeling? Cool. We're going to jump into the next one. Just after dealing with a phishing campaign, it seemed like a good time to rest. Woo! Nope. There was another alert that popped up on a business laptop. There's a suspicious process running. Through our eyes for Canon, we can see that there's something going on. Sans.undertale had went to clicked on something, and there appears to be a strange "I'm not a robot" reCAPTCHA verification and some PowerShell command running. There was an initial bit of investigation on here that there was no file seen when observing what happened on a laptop. Through the tool, we're trying to see if there was something dropped. There was no indicators that a file was dropped in there. So we had to do some digging deeper. We have a couple of the malicious artifacts on the left side here as something to document. So we're going to revisit CyberChef for that PowerShell. The badness. We got some more indicators here. Threat confirmed. This time, new bad guy. Roll for initiative. Now we're taking. This is a stealer. This is a stealer that we're dealing with now, and we have to treat this as we do all the hostile malware. This will generally be escalated to the L3 at this point. If this was as an L2, this will be escalated to the L3 for response. Generally, it's going to be scoping based off of those IOCs to see how far to spread. If anyone else had clicked on, operated the malware, and we're going to contain it. We're going to contain the threat. Disable it. Sometimes you'll have to disable the user account and notify their leadership, notify your leadership and the managers of the person as to why they're not able to work for the time being. So this situation is actually part of ClickFix, which was originally was known as fake CAPTCHA. This was seen back in late 2024, October, which conducts clipboard hijacking. So it was mentioned that browsers are not safe anymore. And part of the reason is that there are some websites that do the clipboard hijacking. And this is involving Luma Stealer and Async Rat. Stealers are growing to be the bigger threat. For those that don't know, info stealers targets the browser credentials, but sometimes it will go after your Discord and cryptocurrency wallet keys. It looks for anything that can be captured and sent to the dark web. And it's rising to the popularity due to the decrease of botnets. So remember TrickBot? Operation Endgame ended that. Emotet, that was also dealt with before. And with the fall of botnets, it's becoming easier to use stealers to get those for the initial legitimate initial access. So one report from Checkpoint is that from the Russian market, Luma Stealer was one of the biggest stealers. Another big stealer long ago was actually Vidar. That has some presence. And Redline. Redline was another one. But the situation with stealers have gotten so bad that mainstream started covering it back in June. That you have 16 billion login credentials to multiple platforms. Apple, Facebook, and Google. So the SOC has we have our work cut out for us. And here's a detection that was created, that I actually created myself to find these type of indicators. Now there is a bit, there's going to be some testing and validation needed for those because you'll find, so this is to find someone who put in a URL within the run dialog. Well, you may find that someone actually does open the run dialog and put in a regular link in, so that will flag. We have a victory. So let's look at how we can progress ourselves. The term that is also thrown these days is upscaling. So how do we handle some of these domains? All the domain of the various technologies that we have to keep apprised of. The ones on the left are considered more the fundamentals, and that can be handled through a couple of training platforms. So Anti-Siphon Core SOC Skills is one of them. Security Blue and TryHackMe. There's two that I've seen in the cloud, Pun Labs and Zentra. Those offer training courses and boot camps. And for affordable ranges, there is a plethora of them, but I'm going to call to attention of two, because our keynote speaker mentioned of TryHackMe, but there's also two that I want to point out. CyberEDU was developed in Romania, and it's a good platform to work with. And an additional one, Defer Labs put on Defer report, developed the Defer Labs, which gets you doing an incident response, going through their CTFs. And for AI, there's Grace One that was recently talked about by a couple people as well. So these are ranges for you to work with. So how do we level up in our life? So there's phases in here. SecOps creation is going to be, you're just an analyst that's handling it all. But as the SOC matures, there's going to be roles that is going to be fulfilled up to the advanced function and specializations, where you can go from the simple SOC analyst to threat hunter and even build up to reverse engineer, forensics, various roles. This is the way that an analyst can level up in their skills, go into various roles. So some outlook. So familiarization is going to be with your environment is going to be very important. Documenting your validated process so others can learn from it. That builds a repository for the playbooks. And automation will continue to be the forefront as part of the process improvement in capabilities. That's the future we're going towards. And these are my references. And some special thanks to some of the people who did the artwork and pixel art for me. So the guy gives them some credit for that. And here you can find me. Unfortunately, I'm not bringing the full ensemble this time. So compared to the one on the bottom right, that's only partial through. But y'all can forgive me. Questions?